Hey, welcome back to the Tango Banter. Today's episode is a little different because we're diving into something I know many of you will be excited about, especially if you love traveling for tango or you're struggling to find good information about the different tango events that are going on around the world. My guest is Scott Boddye, a longtime tango dancer and traveler who spent the past 3.5 years living as a tango nomad. In that time, he's seen firsthand the challenges dancers face when trying to connect with local tango communities. But instead of just accepting those frustrations, Scott has been working on something really exciting, and it's called Mundo Tango. It is a new online platform designed to make traveling for tango easier. Whether you're looking for milongas, events, local teachers, or a place to stay, it's basically like a tango focused social network built specifically for tango dancers. And today, you will get a sneak peek and see how it works. Now, a quick heads up, at a certain point in the episode, we do a screen share demo of the platform. So if you're listening while driving or doing something else, you might want to come back and watch the video version later to see everything in action. All right, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Scott Boddye. Well, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
When we first connected post COVID, I was marveling at this moment in time when your life was about to change completely. So I thought we would just jump back to that moment in time when you were about to embark. And what was that like for you?
Well, when I first started traveling, I didn't have an intention necessarily of becoming a nomad, but it was my first trip, being away for a little while, being away from home, and I ended up really like being away and having this thought of being on the road, and it came out of this idea of being in COVID times where, we're watching all these shows and traveling and wanderlust and things like this. And when I started traveling again, it was like, I like this and I want to keep doing it. And luckily at the time I had a remote job and things just kind of fell into place really well. And it allowed me to tackle this new dream. And I didn't know what I was doing or how long it would be or if I would ever stop or anything like this. So I just went with the flow and was totally excited for it. I think a lot of us in the pandemic, we were, in that environment for so long that a lot of us needed something else different. We needed to take that step. Um,
But do you
and
really think it was COVID? Was it COVID that ultimately planted the seed, or was it something that you had thought about before? Had you done this kind of thing before in your life? Like, yeah, like what was the origin of this, I guess, wanderlust for you?
well, actually, it's been like my whole life. Like when I was a kid, even I moved around a lot, just because my parents, wanted to do different things. I started out in California. My dad wanted to do some house flipping in Oregon. They divorced. I came back down to California, and then my mom met my stepdad, and we moved to Arizona. And then I graduated from university, and I went to New York for 5 years. And then
So
I
you've been
moved.
kind of a nomad at heart. That's sort of
Exactly.
like your natural state of being, it sounds like.
Exactly. And one of the fun and interesting things was I've had the opportunity to spend more time with my parents, like three weeks
Mm.
at a time, and so I've gotten to know them more and more, and they're becoming more and more friends, not just parents. I get to hear more stories about their life, and it turns out that my dad was actually a nomad, but just in California. So when he was
Oh,
my age, he would just go up
interesting.
and down California, stay with friends here, stay with friends there. So it turns out it's just kind of in my blood, I guess. So
Wow.
Being kind of flexible and allowing to just kind of move around is and being okay to just drop in has been part of my life even before this. But then having tango makes it so much easier because I can just drop in anywhere, around the world, and I don't need to know the language because our language is tango. Between the music and the dance, like you get that cabaseo, you dance, and it's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's quite special in that
yeah,
way.
so I think the tango, having tango and the community that it comes with has really allowed for this life to be easier in this way, right? Because I always have the biggest fear for a lot of people is that there isn't a safety net. But with tango, there is that safety net,
You
like,
mean like when people travel and they feel sort of uncertain about where to go and how to connect with people, you're saying tango is sort of that glue that holds it together for us.
yes, because there's tango everywhere. That even in little tiny communities that you wouldn't think there would be there's some.
When you started tango, did you already start it with that intention of traveling and sort of seeing the world? Because weren't you also organizing? You were teaching and organizing, and you were sort of based in San Francisco before that for quite some time. So, what was the shift between like your nomadic nature and then, your tango career?
Well, my tango career in San Francisco was still more of just a hobby. I was lucky that with my girlfriend at the time, we had a really great once a month Milonga El Pato Loco, which was so much fun. And one of the really great things for us was that we had a lot of people say that they they saw different communities come into play, because she and I, we would, make a really big effort to go to a bunch of different milongas in different places to see the different community members because San Francisco, the Bay Area, is so spread out. Um, then we would get people that said, "Yeah, I saw this person. I haven't seen them in years. I thought they stopped dancing, but in fact, no, they just don't go to the same milongas anymore." So,
Hmm.
so my thing has always been more around community and trying to build more community. So that Milonga, and even when I DJ'd, it wasn't that I necessarily super loved to DJ or that I'm really into the music. It was more people liked me and they liked the music that I created. So I was trying to kind of hype people up to more come out for that perspective. So she and I did a lot of work in San Francisco, but then when we were coming out of the pandemic, I I wasn't necessarily ready to jump back into that. I had already been kind of on this idea that I was kind of tired of San Francisco, um, in a lot of ways, not just the tango world, but so I was ready to move on, and I didn't quite have an idea of where I wanted to go next, right?
Hmm.
So when
It
when I
sounds
took
like it wasn't that difficult to imagine yourself sort of taking on this nomadic lifestyle because that's something that you already kind of had built into your
yeah,
experience.
yeah,
Because
um,
I can imagine for a lot of people, tango serves as this like huge catalyst for life transformation. And in a lot of ways, what I'm hearing you say is like the transformation was more like you returning back to who you truly are or the who you really feel yourself at ease to be. Whereas a lot of times when you're going through the transformation, it feels very much that you're stepping into complete unknown and you don't know what's going to happen. And it's very scary. And there's this fear that, as you said, there's no safety net, that there's not going to be the support. I kind of had a similar experience 10 years ago where I gave everything up, my life in Dallas. I sold all my possessions and picked everything up and just left. And it was a very dramatic moment in my life, but it seems like it's necessary to do that from time to time, I guess. So I'm curious, you said that you didn't know that it was going to be this like ongoing nomadic lifestyle, but at what point, like how long into the journey And maybe at what Milonga did you suddenly realize that this is really what you're gonna be doing for a while?
I mean, I it took me probably a few weeks to maybe 2 to 3 weeks after I was gone to be like, I'm ready for a change. Um, and and then once I decided that, then that's when things started to happen. I ended up coming back to San Francisco, and I unfortunately had to break up with my girlfriend at the time. And then I had to figure out what to do with my stuff. And in the end, I didn't have enough time. I didn't have enough energy in so many ways because the Marie Kondo way, you have to look at everything and give it attention.
Who
Do I
has time
want
for
this? Does
that?
it bring me happiness? I didn't have enough of anything to deal with that. So I ended up just throwing everything away. So for the past 3.5 years now, I've just had two carry-on bags, and that's my life.
Wow.
So I really decided to, once I made those decisions that I wanted to go and I didn't want to keep any of my stuff, then that just really offered freedom and liberation to be able to do whatever I wanted. So
Wow.
it was kind of a domino effect within a short time frame, um, and it all just worked. Yeah.
And since you've made that decision now, how long has it been that you've been traveling and doing this thing?
So July 21 is when I started my little bit of travel. So yeah, since then, so 3.5 years.
Wow. And so what does your year actually look like?
It depends. I spend a lot of time in Buenos Aires, probably about 6 months out of the year, mostly during summer, but a little bit of spring and a little bit of fall. The past few years in northern hemisphere summer, I've been in Europe. This past season, I was in Asia, and this next season, I'll be back in Europe. And historically, it's been kind of a mix of tango events, going to cities with tango to explore those communities, or just going somewhere to tour it, to see what it's about, um, and it depends on what's happening. But sometimes I'll stay with friends. Sometimes I'll more times than not I'll probably be just in an Airbnb on my own or with friends or in a hotel for maybe a marathon or a festival.
As you were traveling, and I was kind of sitting on the sidelines watching you post pictures from different places and watch you traverse the world, I was seeing the physical also transformation that you went through. And it was kind of this gradual metamorphosis. I'm curious if you care to talk about that.
So the hair started in the pandemic. Um, my ex, again, she did a lot of fun things with her hair, and there came a point where she needed to bleach her hair, and that none of the salons were open. So she bought her own product, and she's like, "You got to do it." I'm like, "Oh," because if you do the bleaching wrong, then it destroys the hair, right? So I
Oh
got
my
freaked out, but
God.
it went well. And then we had some extra product, and she said, "Well, let's, do you want to try it?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not? If it doesn't look good, then I'll just buzz my hair off." And so, we tried a few things with the bleaching and it went well. And then my favorite color is blue. So we put blue in, and I liked it. So and it stayed since. And then when I decided to travel, again, I'm down to two carry-on bags and just one, you know, um, uh, rolling bag of clothes. So I had to create what's called a pocket wardrobe, where all of the pieces make sense, but you have to find your colors, right? So my colors are easy now, blue and white for the most part with some accents. So red or black and gray. And each piece has to be interesting on its own, but then it has to work together. So that was the main piece. And then everything else in my life is blue, my bags, my everything, and it just makes life easy. But then, the rings and everything else, that all came, in piecemeal later. The jewelry is definitely all of my travels, or gifts from friends. So, when I look, it's a memory, and it reminds me of those times and what has happened. So they mean a lot to me. So when people think of, building their home, with that piece of furniture, that piece of art. Well, I have it here. This is what I spend my money on.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds fascinating. It sounds exciting. It sounds like a really creative experience, but I don't imagine it's without its difficulties and challenges, like your whole image in general and that transformation that you were going through. It was, I don't know. To me, it's like, wow, that was like, that's a lot of change. That's a lot of change to go through. And I'm always curious what it's like for others. Is it just kind of like you're just in the flow and it's all really easy? Or do you have to sort of deal with some of the fears or insecurities that sometimes come up in this process?
Yeah, there's always fears and insecurities. Um,
Yeah. How
overall,
do you
I'm,
deal with
I'm,
those? How do you deal with
yeah,
those?
no, but I mean, overall, I'm very happy and satisfied where my life has gone, the experiences I've had, and where I am now. Both
Mhm.
the work I've done internally and the external. Um, so when they do come up, it's more of, you know, is it too much? Is it too crazy? Am I going to off put people to engage with me? And one of the things that I've had to be more and more comfortable with is saying to myself, it doesn't matter.
Mm.
If they don't see me as myself and the artist that I am, then okay, you can stay on the other side of the room. And
Mhm.
I am lucky in the sense that I am a nomad. And when I go to these communities, if I don't like that community, then I just won't go back. Right. I've I've only had that feeling in maybe two communities around the world at this point. I mean, I have a lot more to go through, but otherwise I've always been met with very open, nice people. I am definitely the most interesting creature in the room in most places. So I've been met with more interest and appreciation. So that obviously helps. And one of the other main reasons that I kind of continue, or I have done this, is to stand out more at the Milongas while I travel. When people travel, it's into new communities. It's sometimes hard to get dances if you don't know people there, right? If this is your first time there, so you have to stand out in some way, either be introduced to people so that you can get dances, or you have to maybe have the skills for it, or you wear bright colors, something like this, so that you can be seen. So this is one of the other backgrounds of why I have continued to proceed with these types of things, right? Is in order to be seen so that I can get dances, and so therefore the community could see me and maybe change their mentality a bit more about what tango is and how to be more accepting.
You were talking about this idea of home. And when I was a nomad for a very brief period of my life, I found it really difficult ultimately to not have a sense of home. And there was this feeling of like I have to fabricate something that feels like home. And there had to be things that stood in for that. And I'm curious what other things for you serve as those elements that help you feel at home when you're out in the world.
For me, I find that home is more being in the milonga. You
Hmm.
know, um, when I come to my apartment at the end of the day, I mean, I unpack when I move into a place. I unpack everything. Everything goes in its place, and that for me feels like home. Because it's always kind of set up in the same way, and so for me, it's deconstructing the traditional idea of having a home, right?
Hmm.
So it's for me, it's based more on the people and the milonga space. That to me is what feels satisfying. All this is familiar. That next Daddy Enzo song comes on. I know this. This is for me. That's what it is.
So when you're traveling and you're kind of going from place to place. You're it sounds like you kinda have a ritual that you go through in terms of, like, your setup, and at this point, it seems like you're familiar with the environment enough that it doesn't really phase you when you travel. And what are some of the ways that you made this happen in terms of, like, you've been using social media for this, for, like, connecting with people or figuring out which marathons to go to? Like, what's been your strategy for getting that all set up?
I mean, it's always a hassle, right? Especially because before this, I hadn't really traveled out of the states much, right? So going through Europe and going through Asia, it's a different beast, you know, or coming down to Buenos Aires as well. Um, so it was a mix of leveraging friends. Hey, I'm going here. Do I know anybody here? Does anybody have any recommendations? Can somebody introduce me? Sometimes that would work, sometimes that would not, depending on the Facebook algorithm, right? Um,
Mhm.
and and then for events, larger events, again relying on that and on friends. But again, it's even that is hard because everybody has their own vision of what a good event is for them, and it doesn't always translate to all of their friends, right? So I've gone to a number of events where, and I always have a great time no matter what, but I really don't know anyone, and maybe the level wasn't really where I want to dance, or maybe it was age range or something like this. So it was always, it's a hit or miss, um, because there's not an easy way to see what events are happening or to see who has attended of my friends. If I could see that you are going to this event and you've been there 3 times in a row, okay, well then that's probably a good event in general. And I know how you dance and what your level is. So yeah, that makes sense. I should probably go to that one. Right. Especially because more and more with the Facebook events, that are created, people they aren't in the habit anymore, like we used to be 10, 15 years ago with Facebook, of actually saying that they are going. We'll say that we're
Mhm.
interested, but then we completely forget about it. Um, so that has been a big thing, a big loss for me with finding the right events or finding the right places to go.
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, it
yeah.
takes so much time to sift through the information and figure out what information to take in. It's my observation, my perception that everyone is complaining about this in general. Like, I hear it from the side of the organizers who sees me, and they'll say something like, "Oh, did you hear about my event that I'm doing?" And I'll say, "No, I haven't." And they're like, "What do you mean you haven't heard about it? I've been posting nonstop. How have you not seen it?" So there's that frustration. Organizers are constantly fighting against this invisible obstacle of getting seen, but also from the dancer side, that they just don't know where to look and they don't know what to trust or who to listen to. And I feel like that's a universal struggle. I'm curious, in all of your travels now, I mean, how many communities have you gone to? Is this something that they struggle with as well?
Oh yeah. No, this is everywhere, and I mean, the other bit of it too is, like, it's one thing to find somebody to help you with the information, but if you don't, then, it's like scouring Facebook for all the different groups, or finding, looking on Google and finding websites. But a lot of times they aren't up to date, or they're old pages or old groups, whatever it might be. So then you're left with, like, I don't know what to do. And then I've been in situations where maybe a few weeks later, I find out I do meet somebody and I say, yeah, I was just here. I had a great time, but I didn't find any tango. And they're like, no, there's a great tango community there. So it's like,
Oh,
but
absolutely,
where was
absolutely.
it?
In terms of the communities that you're visiting, yeah, which I keep wanting to get this number. Like, how have you been keeping track? Like, how many cities, how many places have you gone to so far?
So overall, I've been to 25 plus countries and 70 plus cities.
And in
And for
every
tango, I
city.
don't remember how many communities because, of course, I do mix it up and I go to places that don't have anything. But
Okay,
I would
that's
say
good to
probably
know.
most of them have a community. I don't know, maybe we'll say 85% have a community.
And so you kind of have a really good perspective on the world of tango, kind of a bigger perspective on tango than someone like me who's only on the West Coast of the United States. Would you say that tango is pretty much the same everywhere? Is it different everywhere? Like, what are there any observations overall that you can make about tango having been to so many communities?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I talk to everybody, it's all basically the same.
Yeah.
All of the frustrations that we have are all the same. You know, um, my community is boring. There's not enough dancers to dance with me. There's not enough dancers that challenge me. Um, I don't like going to the Milongas anymore because XYZ, and this is why I travel. This is why I travel to the marathons or the festivals, or I travel to another city that has just a different scene. But then when I talk to the people from that scene, they say the same thing. They're tired, they're bored, they want something else. So we all have this for sure. And this is where the travel component comes into place. The more time people put into their tango world, the more they want to explore and they want to be part of and explore a larger community. Um, so for me, it's just inevitable for people to start traveling more when they get into tango. Do they travel as much as me? No, but
I doubt
being
there's
able,
anybody who can
very very few,
rival you.
yeah, very few. But it's all the same. And even so, the next idea is organizers and or professionals in tango. It's hard for these people to kind of continuously engage with their community in effective ways, right? For organizers and teachers, how do we continuously bring more people into the fold, right? How do we bring them to tango in an effective way and keep them here and keep them engaged? How do we encourage people to continue taking classes so that we get better overall? Um, this is always a challenge, no matter where you are.
Yeah, that sounds like the universal questions that everybody wants to know the answers to. How to get better dancers in your community and how to get new dancers to come into the community. And I definitely see that travel for a lot of people has become not even a luxury, but more like a necessity. At least it's treated that way. Like I don't I don't actually think of my tango travel as like vacation. Like it doesn't sit in my vacation slot in my mind. This is just something I do because I need to do it. And having watched the migration of dancers to and from Buenos Aires this past season and hearing how people talk about Buenos Aires and this almost like, oh, yeah, I'm going to Buenos Aires for a few days, a few weeks, a month, and I'm doing it once a year. And it's like more and more of that enthusiasm. So I think it's a trend that's only going to grow. And this is where I'm excited that you're building this platform.
And the main reasons for me that I created it was out of all of this travel, especially just to make it easier and easier to connect to the community overall. Again, we've already put so much time, effort, and money into our tango careers. So why does it have to be difficult at this point? It shouldn't be. We already have this amazing community around the world. So why can't we just come together, you know, and help support the individual dancer, but then the overarching community? How do we help it grow? How do we help it be more sustainable? And how do we help our professionals who call Tango their either full-time or part-time job, how do we help them be supported even more in whatever participation that is, right? So I saw this huge gap, and I've talked with friends for 10 plus years at this point about these frustrations.
I'm glad you're making that point that you've been sitting on this for a decade. Like this is something that you've started thinking about before even these travels. So these are problems I think that have been growing. Wouldn't you say like they've been getting worse and worse
Yes,
as
yes.
Tango community has been getting bigger? And I think it's like it's the kind of the double-edged sword experience of this growth that Tango has gone through because it's gotten so big and there's so many professionals, but that also means it's very hard to find them because there's just so many. And
Yeah.
and to look through all of that and understand what you're looking for is takes like for you, it took years to figure that out. At this point, I see Facebook as like, look, you're getting into Tango, you're just starting. It's a great place to first connect with people, get to know some of the events locally. But once you're really in it and you're traveling and you actually want more support, like that's when you need something more along the lines of what you're creating.
Exactly. And, right now it's kind of geared towards us addicts that have been in it for a long time and we do travel. So that's kind of the initial demographic, the people who really get it and who really want more and better resources. The image that I'm showing now and what I'll be showing is my test site. We are still in final stages of development. So this is to give everybody an idea of what is to come. And I made it purposefully very, very similar to what we've already seen on social media so that you don't have that shock, right? I want this to be easy for people to start to use. So that was the main point for me. So one of the things, which I think is going to be a main concern for a lot of people, is when I post something on here, you'll have the option to also post it to your Facebook and Instagram so that
Ah,
you
so you can
don't lose
share
out.
it.
Yeah, you don't lose out on that community that you currently have, but you start to create your presence here. And I'm again in this essence of keeping it simple. I don't want you to have to post in three different places, right? So, yes, to the community aspect, when you sign up, one of the questions is, where do you live or where do you dance the most? So then you'll automatically be added to that city group. So if we were to take a look at the community, um, and again, this is test data, but we'll start to be able to see all these different dots around the world of different communities. So if we were to look at one, then it would have all the people that are in this city, all the teachers, photographers, DJs, so that if you jump in and you want to take a class from a teacher, okay, well, here are five teachers in this community. So let me click on their profiles and see what they do, right?
Hmm.
Um, it'll have groups that are specific to that community. Maybe there's a group for after Milonga Thursday tacos or hiking in the area or whatever it might be, ladies technique, men's technique group. And then events, there will be filtering here as well, but these are just the events in this city.
Yeah,
Um,
that is so helpful because one of the most common messages that I get right now is people messaging me about visiting LA and wanting to know where to go for milongas or
exactly.
classes. And
Yeah,
I'm sure that that is the number one question for anybody traveling for tango.
always.
And it's always such a mystery to figure out exactly what's going on for each city. But this is great because this is all under one umbrella. So you get to see all sorts of activities that have to do with that city and that community.
Exactly. And there will be filtering as well based on type of event or all
Hmm.
kinds of details. One of the other future features would be to see everything on a map as well. That will be with the events, but then having a layer on top of that of people who are kind enough to offer their home, either an extra couch, a bedroom, maybe they're offering their apartment, or maybe people have stayed at a great Airbnb or something. So that will be a layer so that you can see, here are all the Milongas, and here's a couple places that I could stay that are close by. So I'm making it easier for people to visit, right? And then another layer would be recommendations. So as you start making posts, you'll be able to put in a location. So if it ends up being a restaurant or a bar or a tourist attraction, you'll be able to see these items and locals will be able to kind of vote on that. And you'll be able to filter out, do I want recommendations from locals or from tourists, people that are visiting
Interesting.
this city? Because,
So it's like Airbnb meets Yelp on the same website for Tango.
exactly, exactly, exactly. Because you'll be able to follow these cities as well. It'll
Mhm,
be one thing that you're automatically added to your city. But
mhm.
then if you want to visit this city, or if you visit this city often and you want to stay in the know about that city, like the events or the groups that are happening, then you'll be able to follow it and get all this extra information, along with for visitors, kind of a way, if you want, to be announced that in that community that, oh, Scott is coming to Athens in a few days. Like, look out for him, try and show them a good time with this idea. Because again, when people go to communities for the first time, they don't know anyone and it's
Yeah,
hard and scary. So if we can make it just a little bit easier for people, then that's ideal, because community members, and going into a topic that you've talked about before about clicks, it's not necessarily in my mind, especially in larger communities, that it's a click. It's more that people just want to hang out with their friends and they aren't always looking out to see other people,
mhm.
to engage with other people all the time, because they're just happy where they are. So if there was a way to kind of be like, hey, there's a visitor coming, take a peek, then maybe people will have a better time and will want to come back to this community at a later time. That's the communities themselves. And
Mhm.
then events, having more details around the events. If we scroll down here, we'll be able to hopefully start to see people actually checking in and then seeing the participant data. This is more important, I would say, for maybe larger events as well. I want to see which friends are going and what the breakdown of the data is. If I want to go to an event that's mostly English, okay, well, maybe this one isn't the right event for me. Or if I want, instead of more of a 50-50 event for dance role, and I want to be more with leaders or more with switch dancers, then that will help inform my opinion as well. So data like this, I think, will help people have a better understanding of events and where they should go, which could hopefully lead to having a better time. The other piece here is connecting with somebody. It's connecting with people and having more information to remember them. So for me, when I look at a profile, I want to know some basic things about this person, like obviously their name and where they're from, what city they're coming from, and are they something in that city? Are they a teacher, a DJ, photographer? So these tags will be on, and it's missing on the timeline here. But when you look and scroll through the pages, you'll be able to see these little tags of, oh, this person's a teacher, this person's a DJ. So it helps you remember just a little bit. And then when you click through and you say, oh, I want to be a friend of Ahmed's here, a form to help us better understand why this person wants to connect with me. Have we
Mhm.
danced? Where did we meet? When did we meet? Was there something interesting? Was there a conversation that we had, or an amazing chanda? Any photos or videos, if there are any? And then for me, this is very important, is a note to myself, a personal
Mm.
note to help me remember who this person is. You know, oh yeah, it's the guy that wears heels and he has blue hair. Okay, then I'll definitely remember that. And then when this goes over to the requestee, then they get the summary of what this person just sent over, but then also the basic details of who this person is. Again, if they're a teacher, DJ, whatever, where they're from, and some other information. So then this would be the quick version, right? Like you're scrolling, scrolling,
Mhm.
scrolling. Oh, who's on it? I don't remember who this guy is. So see friendship is right on the newsfeed, or the
That's
timeline. So
nice.
it's just a quick bubble, a quick reminder. But then if you want to see the full friendship, then there's a button so that you can click in and see everything that you have in common. And we've seen this already on other platforms, but it's usually very buried and it's very limited, right? But with this, you'll see that initial friend request that came through, plus obviously your personal note that you created that's editable, right? And then things in common with that person, the places you've been to, the events, the cities, mutual friends, etc. And then with the posts, currently what exists is it's only engaged with an actual post. So you tag this person on a photo or in the post, and that's it. But for me, Mundo Tango will go further and it will track all of your interactions, right? Any
Mhm.
like or comment that you put on that person's post. For me, that's part of our friendship, right? Is that further engagement? I when I think of with you, Elizabeth, I like what have I engaged with on for your content? What have I liked? And if there's something that I'm like, what did she say? I know I liked it and I think
Mhm.
I commented on it, but I don't remember when it was and I don't remember all the details, right? Well, now I can go back through here and I can see, oh yeah, I liked this post 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And here's what it was, and here's the, what I said or what I liked about it, right? So it really captures the entirety of your friendship online.
So, it reminds me of the early days of social media. Back in the day when I first started on social media, got into MySpace. Did you ever
Yeah, oh
use
yeah. Yes,
MySpace?
of
Oh my
course.
God. And what was fun about MySpace is it felt like a creative outlet. It felt like when I was getting on there, it was to play. It was, I played with backgrounds and you could put songs, whatever as your soundtrack on the page. And I feel like nowadays with the overwhelming amount of content that we're exposed to, a lot of us are sort of pining for a time when we are not exposed to so much information. Like people are going analog. We just got a record player. I'm like enjoying putting records on and the fact that it takes a long time to like get one record and then you got to flip it
Yeah, yeah.
instead of it being on your phone. Like somehow I think, are actually reconnecting with the process of curation and just saying like you said with your clothes, I only need this much clothes because my purpose here is to travel and I need to be able to move around and look stylish. And that was the answer. And I think this platform reminds me of that kind of sentiment that you're saying we have so much information. Why not just take what we actually need and contain it in a place that's protected from other influences or other input? And I love that we're at a place as a global community that we are at a place where we need something like that. That means that there is so much demand for it. So I think it's such a great timing. And one thing I was debating about asking you because I'm sure at the back of people's minds when they travel is the question around safety. And you had posted online that there was an incident where you actually were attacked in Buenos Aires, and it looked very painful. What's your take around safety issues since going through that experience? And like, how should people think about that aspect of travel, which I think definitely having access to people and communities already makes people feel safer. But yeah, what would you say having experienced something like that?
So my experience in Buenos Aires, that was for me, that was just a one-off crazy moment. It's both fortunate and unfortunate, but at that time frame, I wasn't the only one. Over the course of 3 weeks, a number of others were also attacked. So it wasn't just me, the way I looked or the way I was walking down or anything like that. But the main thing is Buenos Aires is, in my opinion, it is a safe city. You just have to be more aware, right? You don't want to, with your phone, you don't want to kind of like be waving it around or, being too loosey goosey with it. You don't really want to walk the streets alone at night. And that was my fault. I walked out and I was walking, at 5 a.m. and it was just bad luck that I came across these people. So, I don't want that experience to deter anybody in any way because it's a beautiful community down here and it's a beautiful city. As far as safety is concerned and traveling the world, it's always, you have to have your eyes open and you have to be looking around and you have to be looking over your shoulder. And when you are walking around, to try and minimize what you have with you. I don't carry my passport with me. I don't carry, if I can avoid it, I don't carry cash. Um, and yes, I look like this, so that of course makes me a target. But I also do research and do read, and if I am in a place where I do feel uncomfortable, then I take it off, right? But then I also do my research to make sure that where I'm staying, it is a safer place.
That kind of information is very local. It's very much part of the community, and you're not really going to know it unless you're part of that community. So, such an important project, and it's so exciting to see how your own personal transformation led to this. It just seems such an expression of who you are. And I'm excited that you're supporting the tango nomads of the world in such a generous way. I am excited to support this project, and I'm sure that there's a lot of other people who are ready and they're waiting to know how they can contribute to your vision. So, what is the place that they can go to support this project?
So to build something like this, it is expensive. So I have taken a huge risk and I don't have a job right now because I think this is so important. So donations would be great. And I'll give you the GoFundMe link. So that's one really great way that I would love your help with. But then also, if this is a project that is of interest to you, right now I am a team of one, basically. I have a team that has helped me build it, a third party. But like I said, I'd love to have more people from the Tango community actually be part of it and help me build it. Maybe you are interested in building a specific feature or you want help with spreading the word or whatever it might be. Like I'm totally down for that. But then at the very least on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, I have the mundotango.life. And then the website has more information about the platform. There's also a join the waitlist. So if you're really interested and ready to kind of get on board and be one of the early users of the platform, you can join that waitlist and you'll be one of the first to join in.
So we have your GoFundMe page, which is really going to be the most important at this stage of the development, is we really need to have the support of the community to build this out. Secondly, if people want to get to know you more and get to connect with you, Facebook is the best place to do this. And the page is
mundotango.life.
MundoTango.live. I keep saying Tango Mundo. I know it's going to take me a
I
little
do
bit.
too. To stay true to, the correct Spanish, it is Mundo Tango. So yeah, it's definitely something
Yeah.
to kind of shift in your brain.
Yeah. And so the links to all of that are in the show notes. And Scott, it's been so fun to chat with you about this. And we'll keep our listeners posted on the development of this. I'm going to share as much as I can. And just a call out to everyone to spread the word. If you check it out and you like this project, do spread the word about it, share it on your social media, share it with friends. And what's the timeline? When are we going to see the first version of this go live?
We are very, very close. I'm shooting for sometime in March or early April. Right now, it really depends on my build team, so I'm at the mercy of them. But that's what I'm going for right now.
Well, we shall pray to San Pugliese to be on your side as you
Yes,
complete this.
I'm crossing everything.